Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, we are talking about this question number 16 of Indian Society GS paper 1 2023. Let's take a look at this question. Why did human development fail to keep pace with economic development in India? Let's understand the question. Human development seeks to talk about how we talk about development often in terms of human development indicators with a focus on education or health or maybe certain quality of assets, but primarily it talks about education, health, and these like indicators. That in those terms, where are we, right? In contrast to economic development, we can clearly see that we've had at least 1.5 decades and continuing of fast growth, that is in terms of GDP. So if we talk about economic growth in terms of GDP but talk about human development indicators parallelly, well, they're not going in sync. In general, I'll give you the relationship. We find that poverty has been reducing. I mean, if you look at 2004-5, right, and you look at 2019-20, so this is National Family Health Survey data 3, and this is National Family Health Survey data 5. Out in this period, 41.5 crore people came out of poverty in India. 41.5 crore. However, parallelly in the same time period, we find that malnutrition has increased very significantly. Right. So educational outcomes are not where we want them to be. Why so? That's the question. The question is saying why. So first of all, establishing what we are saying, that we've experienced near 10% GDP growth rate in the 2000 to 2010 decade. And even after that, we're among the world's fastest growing economies in our scale. But if you look at on the converse hand, literacy rates, 74% literacy rate according to 2011 census. And that's not quite a lot. I mean, as you know, literacy is just whether you can write your name in any language and read a paragraph in any language. Just that's literacy. And even with that, we've got a 17% gender gap, right? So if you talk about National Family Health Survey 5 data on malnutrition amongst children, stunting, which is a measure of acute malnutrition, 35.5% of our children are stunted. The Global Hunger Index reports annually published also are pointing out our this pretty bad position here. And 19.3% of our children are wasted, which is chronic malnutrition. Right? So in this first paragraph, what have we established? We've established that yes, we've had fast economic growth, but no, if you look at parameters of human development, we're not doing that good. Now we get to the core crux of the question, which is asking why. So we want to talk about reasons. First of all, if you look at it, what we've done is we've mostly for quite a period of time, since independence, we just focused on GDP growth because we were presuming that if we just grow faster, then everybody's going to be better off. This was a presumption that, if the pie grows bigger, then my share of the pie shall also grow bigger. This is a presumption of the trickle-down theory that what we have to focus on is wealth creation, then ultimately everybody is better off. These kind of presumptions are done in things like the Kuznets curve, that all you have to do is you have to grow fast and then ultimately benefits will trickle down to everybody. But however, we know that Kuznets curve has been proved to be wrong and false. And in fact, Amartya Sen points out that this approach does not work. That what does work is a human development index based approach. But when did we start focusing on that approach? It's only in the 10th 5-year plan period, 2002 to 2007, that for the first time, we had a targeted approach in human development indicators, focused for the first time. So what are we saying? We started too late to focus on an HDI approach. And that is part of the reason why human development is laggard behind economic development. Second, we are saying, when somebody's human development parameters are not good, we try to enlist them as welfare beneficiaries under schemes. But how do we decide who is the beneficiary? For a lot of schemes, we are using the BPL line criteria for the longest period of time. But how inclusive is the BPL line criteria? Is it covering everybody they need to cover, or is the exclusion too wide and the criteria ineffective? Let's take a look at numbers. If you look at the Suresh Tendulkar poverty line, the Suresh Tendulkar poverty line said in 2011-12 that 21.9% of our population is below the poverty line. 21.9%. Now, this is the kind of figure data which is used to decide the beneficiaries under the Antoday Anna Yojana, or the APL, BPL, the BPL APL beneficiaries under the PDS scheme. So this is being used currently. But is this data very good? Meaning, let's look at the other source of data, which is also official. The Socioeconomic Caste Census points out that 60% of the rural households and 35% of the urban households are poor. And that's also 2011 data. Now look at the divergence, the very big difference between these data points. And we are using the one which is very small and too excluding as the criteria for deciding welfare benefits for a lot of people. Obviously, their human development is not good because they're not getting, all the welfare that ideally they're supposed to get with the programs. Now, further on, we see that this is what we try to understand as the welfare trap. Now, what is the welfare trap? The concept that often what happens is, let's just say, you're below the poverty line. Now, this is, let's just say, a threshold of income. Suresh Tendulkar committee says 33 for urban areas, 27 for rural areas per person per day. That's Suresh Tendulkar criteria. So if, let's just say, you earn marginally higher, let's just say you're earning 40 rupees per person per day, then you stand disqualified from the classification of poor under the BPL line criteria. So your income, let's just say, in an urban area is possibly 7 rupees above the poverty line. However, now you shall stand disqualified from dozens or many welfare schemes which are using this criteria to decide whether you'll be a beneficiary. So for a lot of things, you will have to buy things from the market at retail prices, such as food. So thereby, it could be pretty high that your expense has increased very significantly. You will have to deal with the retail inflation monster, right? You will have to buy things from the market at market price with out-of-pocket expenditure. But your income only increased marginally. So you're in fact now worse off than you were before, right? Because you stand disqualified from a lot of programs, your out-of-pocket expenditure is increased, but your income increased only marginally. And resultantly, we find that this helps us to understand the trend that while a lot of people were coming out of poverty reduced, in the same time, they were disqualified as beneficiaries from welfare schemes. So the number of people with malnutrition actually increased because they were not able to afford that expenditure on nutrition out of pocket because their income had not increased significantly. And so we find that in times of improving economic growth also, the human development performance is actually going bad. Further, if we look at our current data, it's coming from 2011 for welfare programs. Like if you look at the PDS beneficiaries that we have currently, and we are covering 80 crore people nearly. So right now, which is basically 10 crore households which are below poverty line and 10 crore households which are above poverty line. So this 20 crore households are approximately 80 crore people, right? So that's presuming that there are 4 people in a household. So now we are saying that this data is 2011 and with 2021 census did not take place on time. So had that taken place on time, if we simply extrapolate those figures, we could be saying that maybe 10, 11, 12 crore more beneficiaries should have been listed, right? And we've just, not listed those potential beneficiaries who are basically then excluded, right? And obviously, if they're excluded from the welfare list, right? They may not be able to afford it at market prices because they've got low incomes, and their human development parameters can be quite bad resultantly, right? So we're saying all of these reasons are there, right? We've talked about these four major reasons, right? But obviously you can go around and say a whole lot of other things as well if you'd like to add in your answer. You could say that we have had lopsided development, that most of the benefits of development have been concentrated in certain areas, and so equal development did not percolate in our areas, it did not reach everybody equally, and as a result of that we find that human development has not been great. Or there has been obviously inefficiency in governance processes, there has been corruption also, there has been maladministration also, so thereby the kind of intended benefits we would like to people to have in terms of human development indicator performance, they don't have that. So those kind of points are also relevant and valid points. Now the conclusion: Amartya Sen advocates that at least 6% of the GDP should be allocated to education and 6% to health, right? That's the recommendation in order to ensure balanced human development, which is the way we should go forward. And the NEP, National Education Policy, recognizes that. The NEP also makes a commitment to this 6% allocation. We have multiple programs like Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan and Poshan Abhiyan 2.0, which are the current acting way forward through which we are trying to achieve these very important objectives for us of human development, so that human development comes in sync with, at the same step with, economic development. So that is the structure of our answer. Thank you. See you in the next video.